right, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is CyberPatriot. So today we'll just be talking about, what the competition is, and then there's three main parts into it. And then for you guys who are interested, we'll go into each part, and then we'll just kind of explain about it, and that'll basically be the meeting. And we'll probably have future meetings as well to talk more into it. And we'll definitely have training for you guys to get ready for it. All right, so we're going to head over to CyberPatriot's website. And this is kind of where we'll explain it. So the website's uscyberpatriot.org. And we actually talked about this in the first meeting, but I guess we'll go over it again. So if we go to about and go, what is CyberPatriot? They give you a whole spiel, and you guys can read this. But I think for the sake of time, well, I'll just briefly go over it. So basically, CyberPatriot's a competition where it lasts basically until, if we do well, it goes into like the end of second semester for school. And so basically there's a bunch of rounds. There's rounds of competition, and each round we're locking down operating systems. So we have virtual operating systems that we're running on our computer, and basically we patch them up, fix them up, find their vulnerabilities, and then we get points for fixing these vulnerabilities. And then based off these points, that kind of determines our placement. And then if we do well enough, we get to go to nationals, but it's not very easy. It's definitely not very easy. Okay, so we can go in and let's look first challenges by round. So if we go competition challenges by round, or actually let's go competition schedule. All right, so this is the schedule, so you guys can get an idea of how long it lasts. So right now, so there's like a bunch of exhibition rounds and training rounds, and right now we're sitting at training round 2. And so in these competitions, we have in these competitions, they last a couple days. The ones that really count are round 1, round 2, and round 3. And we actually just got a couple weeks ago, we figured out what was happening. But so these rounds, usually during normal season, because this is virtual, but during the normal season, like last year when there's no COVID or anything, you'd get placed. And there's these 3 tiers. There's silver, gold, and platinum. And we have to basically compete in these images, but we'll go over those later real quick. So you guys can look around on here. But CyberPatriots, so we basically have 3 parts of the competition. We got Windows, Linux, and Cisco. And so you can see what a lot of this presentation will actually be going in depth into what each of those parts of the competition is. And so we can go to round 1. So round 1 is the first competition we compete in. And so we can see that there's Windows 10, which is Windows, and then we got Windows Server 2019, and we got Ubuntu 18. And so those are like the virtual operating systems. Those are the things we're using, like VMware. I don't know if you guys have heard of VMware before, but it's like a virtualization technology that allows you to run an operating system in an operating system. And so like you can run so if you have a Windows operating system, you can run a Windows operating system on that Windows operating system in this like virtual machine, or you can run a Linux one on it, or really anything. And so those are like the operating systems we're dealing with. But there's also Cisco, and Cisco's basically, they give you, there's 2 parts to Cisco. There's a quiz and there's a packet tracer. We'll definitely get into that more later. Jason will talk about it. So quiz is more just like a normal quiz. Packet tracer is like setting up a network. And that's basically it. So CyberPatriot, we have a competition. We have these operating systems, and we fix them up and we patch them. And there's a lot of things we have to do. And these I should also talk about round 1, round 2, round 3. Basically what happens is your team, which is usually 5 or 6 people, meets up together. And for 6 hours, you guys work on these images or virtual machines. So these like the images are also known as virtual machines, or vice versa. And then we also work on things like Cisco, where we're doing a quiz, basically just testing our like networking knowledge and also setting up a virtual network. And so I think that's about it for what it is. There's a rule book. There's a bunch of info in here. I definitely recommend you guys just look around through the website. And there's a lot of other things, but the main things we really care about are the competition, so challenges by round, and then competition schedule, and then when rounds actually come around, there's scores, and then you can look at the rules book for like advancement and things like that. And so I think that's about it for the intro. If you guys have any questions, you can definitely put it in the chat and we'll try to answer them. But if no one has any questions, we can go ahead and go into the first part of 3 on Cisco.
Alrighty. Okay, let me share my screen real quick. Can you guys see this? Yep. Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Jason, and I'll be going over Cisco Packet Tracer for anyone that's interested in it. And I just have a brief slideshow to go over, and at the end I'll show you all a demo of a Packet Tracer lab similar to what you would do in CyberPatriot. So first off, what is Cisco Packet Tracer? As you guys might remember from the first meeting, it's a visual simulation tool that allows you to build simple or complex networks and topologies. So Cisco engineers actually prefer to test any protocols on this program before implementing them because it is efficient by saving time and money. And then they will deploy all the changes only if everything works as expected on the Packet Tracer. So you can think of Packet Tracer as a playground for you to explore networking, and you can ask yourself the what if questions and see the results. Okay, so next we'll cover the Cisco networking challenge for CyberPatriot. And for the quiz part, round 1 you can earn 10 points, and that covers modules 3 to 7. Round 2 you can earn 10 points again, modules 8 to 12. Round 3 you can earn 30 points, and that covers modules 13 to 19. And the quiz is multiple choice and covers general networking information such as IP addressing, subnetting, and networking protocols. And the quiz is also completely open, so you could use Google, but the questions are worded in ways where you're going to have to do a lot of digging to find the correct answer if you don't already know it. And then for the lab portion, round 1, you could earn a total of 20 points. That covers modules 1 to 7, round 2, 20 points, modules 1 to 12, and round 3, you earn 70 points and it covers modules 1 through 19. And you'll be given a packet tracer activity with directions, and your goal will be to configure all the devices and settings according to the directions given to you. Okay, so for resources, your main resource will be the Netacad CyberPatriot course. So if you sign up to do Cisco, our club advisor will give you the login credentials, and you'll have access to all the modules. The modules contain Quizlet sets to test the vocabulary. So right here, you could see that. So you could just sort of play and go through it. And then they also have quizzes. So these quizzes are like basically the quiz part of the networking challenge. Okay, and then as you go through the course, some other resources that you have are the notes that you take. I would suggest like using a Google Doc as you go through the course and just extracting all the important information. And then lastly, there's a link right here that I always refer back to in case like I forget some basic commands. Like here, it shows you how to move up the exec modes in the command line interface. So you go enable to move to privileged, and then configure terminal to go to global. And okay, so there are some pros and cons of choosing to do Packet Tracer. The advantages are that the course is in-depth and self-paced, and it gives you a good grasp of the fundamentals of the internet. But the disadvantages are that it takes a lot of time to learn the course. But then again, if you're like learning anything, it takes a lot of time. So also it's a lot of reading to do. Wait, I'll show you guys right here. So these are like some of the lessons, and then you just read through these. But the best way to split this up, I find, is like just choosing to do one topic a day, or like some pages if you don't have that much time. So maybe like 3 or 4. And if it's like the weekend, you can go through a whole topic. Wow. Okay. And then so now I'll show you guys a quick demo. Right here I have, oh wait, screen sharing is paused. Is that, okay, okay. So this packet tracer is just configuring IPv6 addresses. And the first thing that you want to configure is your router 1. So the addressing table is something that you'd always refer back to as sort of your guide for the activity. And so right here it says enable the router to forward IPv6 packets. So you click on R1, which stands for the router. Go to command line interface, enable to go to exec mode, privilege exec mode, and config terminal to go to global, and then IPv6 unicast routing. So that's your step 1. That's enabling your router to do IPv6. And then the next step, it says to configure IPv6 on gigabit Ethernet 00. So that's just one of the interfaces here. So we'll switch to interface gigabit Ethernet 00. And then you can tell that you're in the interface now because there's a -if. And then you'll just follow the IPv6 address that shows here. And the command to do that is IPv6 address 2001 DB8. /64. And then it also tells you to do the link local address. So link local, basically, the address just allows you to communicate on a local network. So we'll do that as well. And then so now that you have everything configured, you want to type in no shutdown. That activates the interface basically. And then it's a bit repetitive. So basically what you want to do is just keep switching through all your interfaces and configuring it with the proper IP address and all of that. So to speed things up, I'll just skip to part 2. So now you want to configure IPv6 addressing on the accounting server. So you click here and then go to desktop. And this is where you can configure the IP addresses. And then according to the table, you want your IPv6 address for accounting server is this with the prefix of /64. That's your subnet. And then the IPv6 gateway with FE80. That's configured. And then we'll do the same thing for CAD. And we have to refer back to the table. Okay. And then, so like when you get through all of these steps, I didn't do all of them, so I'm not going to have all the points, but you could always check your results and then you could see what you got wrong and how many points you earned in total. And yeah, so you could use that to gauge your progress as you go throughout the lab. And if you want to check your network connectivity, that's part 4. It might not work because I didn't have everything completely configured, but I'll try real quick. So in order to test that, you go to sales, and then desktop, you go to your web browser. Oops. And then type in the IP address because that's the server that you want to contact. And then, oh, it doesn't work because not everything is configured properly, but yeah, so that's the demo. And that's all that I have for Cisco. If you're interested, I would say just go for it.
All right, so that's like the demo for Cisco. We'll be moving on to Windows now. And oh, by the way, quick note on Jason's Cisco demo. If you guys got lost or it's kind of complicated, it's because it is. But we'll help you along the way, and then those resources you guys can those resources can be available to all you guys who are competing and everything. And so you guys will be able to learn the same things. So yeah, but okay, back to Windows now. So this is basically just going to be an intro to the Windows operating systems we're going to be dealing with during CyberPatriot, and an intro to just your Windows operating system in general. And so yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know what Windows is. It's probably the operating system you're running on your computer right now and watching this. But so Windows it's owned by Microsoft, and it was first introduced in 1985. And it was like one of the very first graphical user interfaces. And actually, I don't know if you guys know, but the paper company Xerox, I'm pretty sure they were actually the first guys to introduce it. And then Bill Gates saw the idea and decided to yeet it away. And so, but now it's really dominant, really common operating system. And so it's graphical user interface, and that's GUI, and then OS stands for operating system, so something your computer can run on. And it's under this like kind of this group of operating systems, and it's called MS-DOS. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. And it stands for Microsoft Disk Operating System, and it was built those operating systems are built primarily for x86 processors, so like Intel processors, and also the AMD and any processors that are basically like it. And so these operating systems are built with 64-bit and 32-bit, and that's basically just based off your processor, but works for both. 64-bit operating systems obviously can, or not obvious, I don't know. All right, 64-bit can also, any 32-bit programs can run 64-bit too, and Windows kind of has it set up with its own kind of programs and software to help you kind of accommodate for those kind of things. And Windows, the operating system itself, is written in C++ and assembly. So assembly is the low-level language. And C++ is like the high-level language. And it's really popular. A lot of you guys probably have it. You probably see it everywhere. And so it's considered kind of the common operating system and what most PCs or personal computers use. And over here, actually, also, oh wait, I think next slide. All right, so there's all the timeline, so you guys can look at this timeline. But this is mainly for just like your personal computer. So you can take a look, and it first started off in 1985 with Windows 1.0, and then as time went on, 2.0, 3.0, 95, and you guys probably recognize Windows XP, and then Vista 7, 8. And then now we have 10. So 10 was released in like 2015. And so from 2014, you can actually kind of tell Windows already had a really huge market dominance. But yeah, so, and then a lot of Windows operating systems, the ones we deal with, we'll get more in depth to it later, but it's mostly Windows 10 and also Windows Server. And Windows Server isn't included on here, but that's because it's more for businesses and corporations and less for the individual to use. But before we get into that, let's talk about Windows benefits and downfalls. So the benefits, it's really user-friendly. That's why it's like everywhere. It's a lot of graphical user interface, and all you have to do is click, click, click. But and with that, because it's so prominent, you got like a large support base, and you got a lot of people in a huge community helping you out, and there's like always forums and answers, and you can go online for documentation and things like that. And there's also, so Zenkai and Eric will talk about Linux later, but there's something called WSL, or Windows Subsystem for Linux, that was recently introduced, and it basically lets you run Linux on your Windows machine. So that's one of the cool benefits. And then we also have, and also there's the MSI installers and the exe. So those are both graphical user interfaces, and you kind of see some memes sometimes, so like brain.exe has stopped working or whatever. And yeah, so those exe files usually open up and you can click it through it, and it's super simple to install something or get something running. And yeah, that ties into like user friendly. And another notable Windows benefit, but not really related to CyberPatriot, is its like ability for gaming. And there's like some crazy statistics, like Steam has like 99% or something like of its downloads from Windows operating systems. And yeah, and so then, of course, with all these benefits, there's also downfalls. And so downfalls are it's a commercial, it's owned by Microsoft, and the licenses can cost a lot of money. And especially if you're like when you buy a computer, the license is already included. But if you need to like buy other licenses, or you have computers that don't have Windows for some reason, those can cost up to like $200, $300 for even just like the simple Windows Home version. And with this commercial, since it's kind of like you're selling it for money, obviously the code can't be open source, or then people are just gonna like pirate it. And so okay, well yeah, people are just gonna like copy the source code and then they like get Windows for free. And also comparing to Linux and other operating systems, Windows usually has a slower performance, and there's and like the system will take up more RAM, take up more memory, and it's just gonna booting times could take longer. And moving down the list, Windows updates and blue screens of death. Those two things can cause a lot of frustration sometimes, where the Windows updates take forever and they're mandatory, and then and it's like unplanned. So like you're shutting down your computer and then like you're restarting your computer and then you have to update, and then it's pretty annoying. And then since Windows is commercial and it doesn't really have that much, and it's not open source, so the only people who can really fix it are the people who work at Microsoft. And so then you have a lot of errors and bugs popping up, and then blue screens of death are when your computer just crashes and it either doesn't function or you have to like restart your computer, and some parts of your computer might even corrupt or something like that. And tying also into how Windows doesn't have that much support from our community on fixing it. It's less secure because there's less people working on it and less bugs are discovered. And also, since it's commercial, Big Brother likes to collect your data and then your privacy. Unlike other operating systems like Linux, the privacy is kind of an issue. All right, so here's also a tree of, I thought it'd be interesting. It not only includes Windows, it not only includes Windows up here, but there's also Linux and Unix. I think Zenkai and Eric will talk more into that, but this kind of maps out the whole tree. What we care about is you got the MS-DOS systems, and then you got Microsoft Windows, and then this is the kind of very early on, like 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. And then you got the 9.x kernel, so like Windows 95, 98, which were released in like 1995 or 1998. And then you got the Windows NT kernel. And so that was, oh wait, I should probably talk about what a kernel is. So kernel is basically kind of the stuff that works with your hardware in the background, what you don't see. And it's kind of what runs all your programs, does all like the stuff you can think of. It's like memory management when you have like Chrome and Discord and I don't know, like games opened up, like how the computer handles all that, and like the memory management, you can like input output stuff, how like your mouse and all that stuff. The kernel kind of is like the background thing that's like the back end of your computer that's running all that stuff and processing it. And so this NT kernel was built off the 9.x kernel, and it evolved to things like Windows XP, Vista, and then Windows 10 2000, which was before that, I'm pretty sure. Actually, I'm not too sure. And then you got Windows 7, 8. But now Windows NT kernel, I'm not too sure if it still runs behind Windows 10, but it might be something different. But obviously, because the code's not open source, they don't know as in depth as something like Linux. And so like you have like all these Linux we'll get into that later, but there's all these other operating systems aside from Windows. So yeah, even though Windows is pretty dominant in the market from, I think, the picture over here. So you got like 90% Windows. All right. So now getting into more of like the technical aspects of Windows and CyberPatriot. I'll go over those pretty quickly and then we'll have a demo at the end. So for CyberPatriot, I see it. I'll go back over here. Let's see. Let's go back to competition rounds. challenges by round. So we use mainly, so there's actually a practice run, and last year we used Windows Server 2016. I'll get more into depth, like the differences, but there's Windows 10, and last year we used Windows Server 2016. But if you guys scroll down, round 1 actually uses Server 2019, and round 2 uses 2016, and then 3 uses 2019 again. And so that's kind of the versions we use, the versions of Windows. So both of them are pretty up to date. And in Windows, the Windows 10 is different from what you have on your computer, I assume, because you'd probably have a Windows 10 Home, but then this is Windows 10 Pro, and there's like a lot of additional stuff. And basically, so we have more stuff to secure. And Windows 10 Pro is like used in professional environment. And then, so on Windows 10 or Windows 10 on server, there's a lot of kind of tools we use from Windows. So there's the Control R, and I don't know, or actually it's Windows R. I'm kind of trolling, but it's Windows R, and these are kind of the things that we use to interact with the Windows operating system. So you got Windows R to run commands, and so I'll show a bit of this later. But like, I think one that you might use, or that you might use in the future if it's interesting for you, is you can use appwiz.cpl to actually open up all your app wizard. So you can kind of guess, and CPL stands for control panel. And so if you run this, it opens up your programs that you have, and you can also turn on and off feature. And these are actually things we do in CyberPatriot, and I have a lot of stuff. So yeah. And then there's also the start menu and Windows search. So those are some tools we use. It's pretty simple. You guys probably use it already. So the start menu, and you can search stuff in here. So you can like search, I don't know, what's something we might use? Like show hidden files. So when we need to show hidden files, that's something we can do running from here. And so you also have the Microsoft Management Console, and you might hear it as MMC, and that I'll show it later in the Windows demo. But that has a lot of other snap-ins. They're called snap-ins, and kind of these tools that you can use to secure the rest of the system. And then there's also various other graphical user interfaces with things like your firewall and like the firewall. Like if you go home firewall, you can open it up, and you got a firewall. And this is something we might have to deal with going into CyberPatriot. And then, so there's a bunch of graphical user interfaces. We'll get more into depth later. And then Windows, although it's a lot of GUI stuff, there's also command line interfaces, or CLIs. And so you got PowerShell. So, and more commonly known, probably command prompt. So you can go just type CMD. And so these are the two that are often used as we get more in depth. So PowerShell is basically command prompt, but better, and with more extended functionality. And so you can run commands on here, and you can, for PowerShell, it's pretty powerful because you can actually automate some of the more mundane, more boring tasks you have to do. But something cool, I don't know. I think there's actually cool stuff that you can do in here, but I don't. There's like Easter eggs. But you can run commands like echo hello, and then this prints hello to the command line. And so there's a bunch of things we'll get more in depth. But yeah, so those are the two command line interfaces you use. Also with the Windows subsystem for Linux, we might use actually Linux command line. And Senkai and Eric will talk more about that. But then you also have forensics. So in both Windows and Linux, you got like these text files to ask you, blah, 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 like who is the owner of this file, or what is the, like they ask you random various questions that are kind of just like just like computer or cybersecurity intelligence kind of, or like knowledge, I guess. And then sometimes they involve doing stuff with your operating system. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they ask like, what is the contents of this hidden file? And then you got to do stuff to find the hidden file. Yeah, and then you also use third-party software. It's not as common as in Linux, or it's not as common in Linux. You don't use as much. For Windows, you use probably a lot more. And so third-party software can help you do things like find like unwanted files, backdoors, viruses, things like that. So we'll go to the next slide. So actually, yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll do a quick comparison between Windows 10 and server. And so Windows 10, you got stuff like these are like the things, or I guess the differences in both like themselves, like the or operating system by themselves, and then also the differences in what we're doing with each image for CyberPatriot. So Windows 10 we use it's local, so Windows 10 Pro, it's local groups and users, while Windows Server there's something called Active Directory, and that's like we're managing a whole network. And since it's a server, so it's managing a network. And then Windows 10, you got stuff like Control Panel, but then Windows Server, you got like you got Windows Server Manager, and actually it's over here. So this is from Windows Server, and you got things, different things to manage. And usually Windows 10, the regular one, is considered an easier image because you don't have as much to manage. But they both have their differences. And so Windows Server, you got Server Manager, you got roles and features instead of a control panel. And Windows 10 actually it's more for since it's Pro, it's closer to individual use, but not individual, like not completely individual use like at your home, but it's more, you still have things like Cortana, Microsoft Store, you can personalize it more, while Windows Server it's more for it's like actual just like industrial, like commercial, and for businesses. And it's like like no shenanigans, I guess. And it's like intended just to run as a server. And so you got also group policy settings. And so group policy settings, we can more into that later, but group policy settings for a whole network, you're setting settings like I guess common setting is, what's it called? Or like an obvious setting is like making sure your firewall's on. So group policy settings, Windows Server sets it for everyone in that network. Windows 10 only sets it for your own computer. But both of them include Windows Firewall. So you got firewall for both of them, obviously. You got security, you have updates. So both of them need updates, which can be annoying sometimes. And you have software. So a lot of software that runs on Windows 10 can also run on server. So server, you might have Firefox installed. 10, you'd also have Firefox installed. But with the software and features, server actually does have more. So you have IIS, which is Internet Information Services, and it's basically for website hosting, and that kind of goes hand in hand with WordPress. And then FTP, which stands for File Transfer Protocol, that's for sharing files, and SMB Server Message Block, that's also for sharing files and sharing folders and things like that. And so Windows 10, obviously Pro, like you wouldn't be sharing or hosting a website. Sometimes you do actually, but it's more often that happens on server. And then you got logging, so you have to see what's happening. So we talked about intrusion detection systems, and basically we're blue teaming, right? So last week's on Friday we talked about blue teaming, red teaming. We're blue teaming. We're keeping these systems protected and from attack. And so all this is blue teaming. And so we got things like event viewer, task manager, task schedule, and audit logs to see if there's people trying to get into our system or things like that. And finally, both of them have services and processes. So like a service that's commonly up is like you got Windows Defender, that's a service. And so that should be a service that should be always up and running to make sure you're secure. And then there's also services that we should be disabling, like SMB SMB 1.0 is actually one of the things we have to disable, or because there's known vulnerabilities and known exploits where if you just leave that open and running, people can screw over your computer. And so yeah, they got processes as well. So like I don't know, you just gotta keep stuff running. So let me think of a process. Windows. Sorry, I haven't done this. Oh, we can probably look into the demo later, but like Windows process, like keeping your if you got like a internet, or if you got a web server set up, you got to make sure its processes are running. And if you got like a DNS server set up, oh well, yeah, so there's just various processes that you have to run. All right. Make sure they're running, or even some you have to disable. And so when we go to a Windows image or a virtual machine, same thing, Windows image virtual machine. During competition, there's kind of a list of stuff we do. Sometimes people have checklists. And so we got to read the README. They tell us about the system, what's happening. They give us like our scenario. And then you go to forensics and you do the forensics, because usually you don't want to change anything before you do the forensics. Or like you can imagine a forensic asks, what's inside this hidden file, and then you delete the hidden file, and you don't know what's inside the hidden file now because it's gone. And then we do Windows updates as well. Those take kind of long, so we like to start them early. And you have things dealing with your users and groups, and like making sure that these authorized users are supposed to be there, and the guys who aren't supposed to be there. And then you got group and security policies, so like setting settings, like there's a lot of settings actually. I'm kind of blanking out right now, but there's like basically we have to go through Microsoft Management Console, and there's something called Local Group Policy Editor, LGPO policy. Yeah, policy editor, and then you go through there, and then you have to disable, enable settings, and usually they change some up. So like sometimes they disable your firewall, and then that should be enabled, so you have to go enable it. And we got the services and features you got to keep running, and then our setup, and then you got firewall, security. User Action Center is basically another form of security, making sure that like when you, let's say you want to run or change your, okay, well, let's see. Let's say, what is something to do on a computer? All right, let's say you want to change a firewall rule or something, or you want to open up Windows Firewall, or you want to open up you want to change somebody's password, or you want to run a file, run a command, or run like, obviously you want only like maybe if when downloading stuff and running stuff, you only want administrators. So then you set User Action Center to the highest, so that you, or like a high level, so that basically when you run it, it asks for the admin password before you can do something. And so if you're a regular user and you don't know the admin password, then you can't run it. All right. So wait, what's the time? Shoot, it's 1:40 already. Okay, so we'll quickly go. So you got server configs, and then you got like files that you got to deal with, and then deal with malware. Okay, we'll do a really quick image demo. All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen. All right. Okay, so here's the image. We pulled one up. This is actually CyberPatriot's training ground. And then here's the server manager that we're talking about. And then they have a couple services running, and we see that something couldn't start. So download maps manager, actually that doesn't really matter, but this is a service that couldn't start. And then they're running a file and storage service, so probably file transfer, and then IS, which is for your website. And then they also have their forensics questions, which are actually text files, but they're associated with Notepad. And then we can go to the README. Let's open the scoring report too. Let's open the scoring report. Okay. And so here's our scoring report. There's only 12 vulnerabilities. It's training ground, pretty simple. And then we have no points, sadly. But here's a README. It tells you a bunch of stuff with the forensics questions, competition scenario. Like this computer is for official business use only by authorized user. And like Windows Action Center should be enabled, and it's Windows Server 2016. It gives you like authorized passwords. We'll go into this more later, but something like they tell you critical services, remote desktop, and actually remote desktop is something you should be disabling because you don't want people remotely entering your computer. But then they say it's a critical service, so we should leave it on because usually disable it, but now we have to leave it on. And they tell you like things like, or you guys can probably read this later. We'll share this to you guys as well, so you guys can explore around, and we can teach you guys how to open up and set up these kind of images. But yeah, so that's the README. You can read through README. Let's see, we'll get some points really quick. All right, so let's go answer forensics. All right, let's go to first forensics. Okay, so tell us who. Team Flash has been locked out of Star Labs. Luckily, Vibe has added 2 members to remote desktop groups. So and it says, who's the 2 members of remote desktop group? So what we can do is we know we need to check out the groups. So we can run, we can just search up group. Okay, wait, psych. All right, so we can run a command using the run command. Well, I'll teach you guys later. So it's losermanager.msc, and it's local user manager.msc, and MSC is just like the file extension for the Microsoft snap-in. I don't know, but this is like one of the snap-ins, the things that we can get from Microsoft Management Console, and we can actually run MMC, Microsoft Management Console, and then this is actually, whoa, where is this? And so we can actually add this snap-in, but actually here, I won't do that right now because we're kind of low on time, but we can add the snap-in, or you can just run this. I prefer just running this, but we can go to groups, and then it's asking us for remote desktop group. So then you can probably guess remote desktop users. So we got we got Kramen and Sea Snow. All right, so we can type Kramen and then C. Also, by the way, if you guys ever thought of like hacking this, it's actually pretty hard to hack it, and it's against the rules. And you basically have to rip. Okay, so they got a scoring engine, and that's how they score you. And you basically have to reverse engineer the scoring engine. So that's kind of hard to do. So we got Kramen and CS Snow, and hopefully we get the points, but take some time, and we gotta save. Make sure we save the thing. Then we go to our scoring report, and usually there's this really epic sound that plays, and that sound is like this Mario sound. And it gets to a point where after you do this, you enter a state of euphoria every time you hear the sound.
Daniel, you should have told me about the sound when I did the image. It scared the hell out of me. I had my on full and I was wearing headphones.
Okay, so hopefully this this will load, but please scoring report, please load. Oh, okay. Well, that was a weird sound, but we got the points now. Hey. So you got 10 points for fixing it. Usually you don't get that much, but all right, that's basically it. That's the demo. There's a lot of other stuff we can do, but that's it for Windows. So now we'll move on to Linux. And by the way, this meeting might go a bit over time. So if you guys may like have to stay extra 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's go into Linux now. And so I might be asking, what is Linux? Because you have never heard of it. So there are two ways to think of Linux. You can call it an operating system, just like Windows or Mac OS, or you can consider it as its kernel, like Windows. The Windows operating system has a Windows like NT kernel, and then Linux is a kernel as well. But so here we actually. So the kernel is basically the foundation of the OS. It's the core, as you call it, and it handles like memory management. It handles like all the CPU stuff. It loads your program and lets CPU execute it, etc. It uses drivers to connect your peripheral devices. You can use them, and yeah, it does a lot of stuff. And the Linux kernel is like what is usually considered to be Linux. And there are also other parts to the entire operating system that can be considered Linux. There's the bootloader, of course, but that's a bit like away from not really the OS. And then above the kernel, you have the init system, which basically like starts all your processes. So the init process is basically like the first process in your system, and it like starts off all of the other like services, daemons, etc., and it enables you to like have an actual working operating system. And then you have daemons, which are background services, handles like sound, printing, scheduling, like task scheduling and stuff. And then you have a graphical server, which is the graphical server basically handles like all of the windows and painting like that your graphics card has to do. So how it works in okay, I'm not going to go too much in detail because it's like irrelevant right now. And they have the desktop environment. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that either. And then finally, you have the applications that are used. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And here are like some of the variants of the Linux operating system. I mean the Linux kernel. Wait. Okay, I'm going to go into that later. All right, so why do you want to use Linux? Here's a mascot, Tux the penguin. Okay, and then first, it's powerful and it's secure. Like if you know how to configure it well, it's going to be secure. And by default, it is like secure enough so that you won't get hacked. And it's also lightweight. It's not bloated like like the other OSs. And yeah, and it's very efficient. So when I boot up my OS, they're only like I'm using Linux right now. When I boot it up, it uses only about like 200 to 300 megabytes of RAM. So that's pretty cool. And it's widely used, not in like desktop, but in servers and supercomputers. Like almost all supercomputers use Linux. So because it's that's all you need for supercomputers. They don't need like user interfaces. They just compute. There are usually less attack vectors to Linux. It's also open source, and the Linux kernel is free, as well as many of the distributions, which I will cover later. It's open source, meaning that you can check the source code that they used to make the operating system. So you can either make modifications to it, or just learn how the system works, or spot bugs and report it. Or some malicious people might also use it to attack, but that's like the only downside. The upside is that there are more chances for issues to be found that way, because it's such a widely used operating system, or it's such a widely used operating system that a lot of companies are actually investing money to like investigate in it. And it's also a very like friendly environment to developers. You can run so for example, if you want to install Java on like, so if you want to install Java, you can probably just run like using the package manager that you have. So yeah, you can choose all the versions and etc. And you can also on some OSs you can even like change what version do you want to use at this moment. So yeah, on Windows, you probably had to set the environmental variable like manually, and it's a lot of hassle. And the same thing with other like scripting languages like Python. It's also really easy to install all kinds of tools with Linux, because it has a universal package manager, which Eric is going to cover later. So obligatory joke. So yeah. So for Linux, a usable Linux OS consists of a Linux kernel plus a lot of stuff that you're probably not interested about, and plus the applications that it carries. For example, your browser. So a Linux distro is just usable OS with the Linux kernel suited, and there all the variations are basically suited for different uses. So we have Ubuntu, Debian. These two are what we're going to be doing in CyberPatriot. There are different distributions, but they're pretty similar, because Ubuntu actually uses the source code. So Ubuntu builds off Debian basically, and then you also have Fedora, and then you also have Arch, which I'm using right now, and then you have OpenSUSE, Tails, Tails is a security-oriented OS. I mean, and then there are like a bunch more. So Linux can be used for both desktop environments and also servers. And for the server variants, you basically don't have a user interface. You just run commands. And for the desktop, you'll usually get a usable desktop environment, gives you pretty interfaces, etc. Oh shit! And then there are also several disadvantages to Linux. It's not very user-friendly, unlike Windows, and you'll have to learn if you want to use it well. But it's not really that much if you just want to use that as a daily driver. It can also be vulnerable if you have bad habits, or if you configured it badly. That should be obvious. But well, the upside is that you have a lot of you have a lot of control over the operating system. So if you learned it well, it can be very powerful. But if you don't, yeah, it's gonna bite you back. So yeah, this is one of the places where you might not want to install Linux on, like, yeah. So this is one of the reasons that why you don't want to install Linux on the newer like computers, because sometimes it might not support your hardware. Like your graphics card might not be supported, and NVIDIA is also has like very crappy support for Linux. Yeah, so. And you will occasionally encounter funny errors that have to fix yourself by Googling. But yeah, but usually the community is very like large, so you can often, if you have encountered it, other people probably also did. So you can look it up, and they probably have posted a solution already. So it's not that hard to fix. So the other very big downside is that you have to give up like Microsoft exclusive applications like Microsoft Office and Adobe Creative. Wait, what is that? Yeah, the Creative Suite, or what is called Creative Cloud now, and yeah, like Photoshop, etc. You have to give all of them up, and you probably also have to give up gaming, because it's not very pleasant on Linux. Yeah, although the Linux gaming community is slowly it's growing, but if you want to do gaming, I recommend you stay on Windows. Okay, let's talk about the kernel. So the kernel is the core of the OS, as Daniel has discussed earlier. It handles all the software-hardware interactions. Basically, so basically, if the software wants to do something like read a file or something like that, it has to tell the kernel, and then the kernel handles it and then gives the like corresponding resource back. And it's the Linux kernel is also open source under the GPL license. It's Unix-like, so Unix is like one of the granddaddies in the operating system history, and it has the like similar design philosophies as Unix. And Linus Torvald is the one who started the project. He originally intended it to be like a hobbyist project, but somehow it caught on, and now it has a ton of contributors. And yeah. So this is basically how it works. You have the kernel in the middle, and then on the top, that's what you see. You have the applications, and it talks to the kernel, and then the kernel, based on what the application requested, talks to the CPU, and then handles memory, and then uses devices and provides the resource back to the application. Yeah, we also, so in Linux, we also use the shell a lot. So the shell is a place where that allows you to run commands. And the shell is a program that runs in the terminal. So this is what a terminal used to look like. It's a big, like a big computer looking thing, but this is not the actual computer, I believe. So they used to have like, it used to be like just connected to a computer. So yeah, and this is a shell or a terminal is the most direct way you can like talk or control your computer. And yeah, so wait, let me actually. So in CyberPatriot, we use the shell a lot. It's very convenient. You just have to learn a few commands. Wait, not a few. Well, you have to learn a few commands to be able to do the CyberPatriot stuff well. So we'll cover these commands like, so Eric will cover these commands later. So Linux has a very simple model of like privilege separation. You have one user called root, and then this user is like the god in the operating system. It can do like almost everything. It can read any file or write anything to it, and it can execute any file. and you can the root user can log in as any other user on the system. It can add, delete, or like modify users, like their passwords, like their expiration and stuff like that. You can also change like all config files. That basically ties back to the read, write, execute anything. And then you can also install packages and do system upgrades. So packages is like what packages are. So on Linux, if you want to install something, you install packages, okay? And then all Linux operating systems have a package manager that lets you like install, remove, or upgrade packages. And so every program on Linux basically uses this package management interface. You can even do system upgrades through it, because even the Linux kernel is a package inside the package management system. So, and there's no forced upgrade unless you like tell it to do so. So, for example, it won't usually like upgrade on the back like in the background. You can also but you can always like manually do so. For example, if I were to do a system upgrade, I can just do it right now. Yeah. So yeah, basically, yeah, it's basically just one click, one press of a key, and then just upgrade it for you. So that's pretty simple. And then, so that's the root user, okay. So you also have another type of user called the sudoers, and they're basically the administrators of the system. So the sudoers can execute commands. They can execute commands as root user using the sudo command. So sudo stands for super user do. So the root user is also called a super user. I think that makes sense. Okay, and then users also belong to a group. Users also belong to groups. So the sudoers users belongs to the sudoer group, or occasionally the admin group. Don't confuse it with ADM. That's the group of users that can read system logs. They can also launch a root shell using his or her own password. So that's config. These are all configured in the sudoers file, which is like right here. Actually. So yeah, here's the sudoers file. So basically you have here, which is the root user. The root user can, so on this host, it can run everything, all commands as any user or any group. So that's basically, so root user can do everything with sudo. So you can use he can use sudo to like run a command as another user, or just change into that user using the so he can change into that user using sudo. Wait, actually doesn't, because he has all the permissions. He doesn't really have to use sudo, but he can. Also, here's the sudo group. So the % sign represents group. Okay, the sudo group can so on this host can run all commands as any user or any group. So you can also add like other users if you want to. You can change what commands you can run. You can change like whether it requires a password or not, etc. So it's pretty powerful. It's pretty simple as well. So on Linux, basically everything can be configured using text files. So that's a big upside. So if you want to like keep a backup of your like settings, you can basically just copy the entire etc directory and then save it somewhere else. And then yeah, so and below the sudoers who can execute like special commands like as root, you have the normal users who can't really do anything other than like accessing his or her own files and using already existing programs, etc. So yeah, now we're gonna give it, now I'm gonna give the screenshot Eric. So Eric will introduce you to some of the essential shell commands.
Okay, yeah, so I think you guys should be able to see my screen now. So I'm just gonna go through some like basic commands that we're gonna be using with Linux. These aren't exactly like necessarily related to CyberPatriot, but you need to know those if you're gonna be working with Linux. So I'm actually currently on a Windows operating system, but the good thing is we can just use an online Linux terminal. So if everyone can like copy the link that I just sent in the chat and open it and follow along, that'll be pretty useful. Even if you think you're going to be doing Windows or Cisco, you guys should still learn these basic Linux commands because Linux is pretty cool and it's going to be pretty useful later on. Also, if anything like goes wrong or you're not following or you need some help, you can just unmute or tell me in the chat. Otherwise, I'm not going to know. So I'm just going to have to keep on going. So hopefully when you open the link, you see something like this. This is basically like a terminal, except it's on Chrome because it's online. But basically, so some of the very simple commands we're going to be doing. The first thing we're going to be working with is pwd. So pwd stands for print working directory. And as you can see, right now the directory we're in is /root. If you don't know what a directory is, a directory, you can basically think about it as like a folder. So they're kind of like synonyms basically. So right now we're in /root. And the next command is ls, which stands for list directories. So if I do ls, you'll see we have 4 files in here. These should just be like, these are just automatically in here because of the website we're using. There's nothing important with them and we're not going to touch them. But basically what ls does is it lists what's in your directory. And currently these are the 4 files we see. Now we're going to create a new directory and mess around in there. So mkdir, that stands for make directory, and make sure you specify the name of the directory you want. So for us, we're just going to do something like test. So make directory test. And after doing that, we can run ls again, and you should be able to see our new directory test. It's in blue because it's a directory. The rest of these are all white because they're just files. So after making this directory, what we want to do is we want to be able to cd or change directory and move into the directory. So the way to do that is just simply cd test. And now you should see on the left, we used to be in localhost. Now we're in localhost/test. And we can double check this by running pwd, which prints our working directory. And as you can see, now we're in /root/test. And if we run ls, nothing's going to show up because this is a blank empty directory. So if we want to create like a basic file, we're going to use the touch command. The touch command can also update access time, but I'm not going to get into that because it's a bit more complicated and unnecessary. So basically, if we want to create a new file, we're going to call it like important.txt. So we're going to do touch and then important.txt, just like that. And when we click enter, we have created a file, and you can check the file by doing ls once again. So hopefully by now you should be at this point. You've created a new directory. Inside the directory, we've created an empty file, which is called important.txt. If I'm going too fast, someone can just let me know and I can slow down. Otherwise, we're going to keep going. So the next command we're going to be using is mv, which stands for move. This command is also used for renaming files. Basically, how it works is I'm going to move important.txt to a different directory, a different folder. So for us, what we're going to do is we're going to move important.txt into the outer directory. So this might be a bit confusing if you haven't used like Linux before, but if I do cd ... I'm basically like going back one step. It's like going to the folder above the folder you're currently in. So if you run cd ... and then you should do ls again, you'll notice we are going back one step. Yeah, as Daniel says, we're going back one step. And now you can see we're back in the original starting position, and we can go back into cd test. So what we're trying to do is move the important, right? So if we can see, if we do ls important.txt, that's the file we're trying to move. And the command we're running is mv, which stands for move. And then what file we want to move, which is important.txt, and where we want to move it. So we want to move it outside the folder, right? Like one step back. So we're going to do ... and then / the file name. So we can simply call it important.txt again. And if we run that and we click and we run ls again, you'll notice that there's nothing in this folder because we moved it outside. So if we do cd ... and then we do an ls, you'll notice that we see test and important.txt, which we moved to the folder outside. We can also rename important.txt. So let's say we want to rename it to like really important.txt. So we just do mv important.txt. And instead of like doing ... / somewhere else, we can just keep it in the same location and just rename it to like really important.txt. And if we do ls again, we'll see that it's now called really important.txt. Next command is for copying. So to copy a file, let's say we want to copy our really important.txt file, we just do cp, which stands for copy, and then really important.txt. This is actually pretty important, just like a little tip. So you can use tab to autocomplete. So because I'm at REA right now, and if I click tab, oh shoot, didn't work. All right, so you notice that it's going to show the two options, which is readme.txt and really important.txt, because both of them start off with REA. So if I just do REAL and I click tab, it just auto completes. So it's pretty useful. So then we can do copy really important.txt, and we can call it really important.txt.o because it's the old version. And then after running ls again, we'll notice now we see there's two really important.txt, and this one's the copy because it shows .old. The last command we're going to learn right now is called cat. So basically, cat, it prints files or can concatenate, but let's just worry about printing files right now. So if I do cat really important.txt, it should output the contents of really important.txt. So there's actually nothing inside really important.txt, which is why we're receiving nothing from the output. But we're gonna switch to echo right now and learn how to actually echo different sorts of text into the file. So you guys should be able to see this. So these are the echo commands. So just basic echoing, you guys probably know how to do this. So we can do echo hello world, or you can put it in quotes, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so after running this command, all it does is it just prints hello world. But there's something to note. If you guys are used to using backslash and like \n for a new line, it's not going to work with just simple echo, because let's say we do echo hello \n, which is printing a new line, and then world. It's just going to print the \n because we're just using simple echo. Instead, we want to use echo -e. The -e basically allows it to interpret like escape sequences, the backslashes. So we can do echo -e and run the same command, echo /n / world, and then it'll pop out as 2 lines. And now how to print to a file. So we can just simply echo hello, and then we're going to put one greater than symbol. What the greater than symbol, it means it overwrites the previous data with the new text, which is hello. And we're going to overwrite this into our file really important.txt. So after doing this, we can print out the contents of really important.txt by a simple cat really important.txt, and you'll see it shows hello. So basically what overwriting means, if you don't understand this, let's say I want to do echo hello. Let's actually put a -e and hello world, and then \n, and then Linux is greater than Windows, because it's real. This is really important.txt, so it's true. And then if we pipe this, or we use the greater than command, only one greater than command, and we put it into really important.txt, you'll notice that when we do cat really important.txt, it just says hello world, Linux is greater than Windows, but it does not show hello because the greater than symbol basically it overrides So it just overrides whatever text was inside the previous file. If you want to append text to the end of the file, we use 2 greater than commands. So for example, we can do echo, and then we'll put Daniel does not like Linux. And then we can do 2 greater than commands, and then we'll put this into really important.txt. And when we do cat really important.txt, you'll notice that it did not overwrite the previous contents, it simply added it to the very end. So now we'll continue with our file. We'll continue with our file navigation. Time to learn how to grep. So basically, grep searches for a pattern, and it does support regex. And it's we're gonna grep inside of the file. So if we just do grep, and then we want to search for hello. So grep hello. The hello is the expression we're searching for, and we're gonna search for this inside the file name of really important.txt. So we know hello does exist inside the file, and it exists in the very first line, hello world. So when we run this command, the output is hello world, because it only outputs the line with the text. So it doesn't output the whole file. It only outputs the line that contains the expression. So for example, if we want to do grep Daniel, really important.txt, it's not going to show the whole file contents. It's only going to show the last line, which says Daniel does not like Linux, which that's just not cool. Then the file command, as you can see here, it gives you the file type. This is very important for like CTFs and for like forensics. Basically, it tells you information about the file. So if we do run file and then test, in case hopefully you guys didn't forget, but test was our directory we created in the very beginning. So when we run file test, it's loading. So it shows that test is a directory, as we already known before. And we can actually use an asterisk to symbolize all of the files inside our directory. So if we do file and an asterisk, the asterisk stands for every single file, because it's like more like regex stuff, however you want to pronounce it. So it's going to show us the information about all the files inside our directory. So as you can see, it shows us like these first 4 files, which are automatically in here. There's like a Python script, etc. And it shows really important.txt, which is the one we're messing with. It shows that it's an ASCII text file, and really important.txt.old is empty because we didn't do anything with it. We just created a copy. And our folder test is obviously a directory. So just want to give a heads up. If you guys aren't following along because it's too fast, it's fine. As long as you guys are trying to like pick up some stuff here and there, it'll be okay. So next we're going to learn how to remove different files. So removing files or directories too, we're going to use rm. Basically, let's say we want to remove really important.txt.old because it's empty and it's unused. So we'll just do rm really important.txt.old. And then after running the command, we put ls, and we'll notice that really important.txt.old is not there anymore. It disappeared because we just simply deleted it. You can also delete files, like multiple files at once. So for example, let's say we want to delete bench.py, hello.c, hello.js, and readme.txt. So we'll just do rm bench.py, hello.c, hello.js, and readme.txt. And after running this, and we do ls again, you'll see they have all deleted, and we only have really important.txt and the folder test left. And now, lastly, how to remove empty directory. Notice it has to be empty. Remember, our test directory is empty, and we can check this by going cd test and then ls, and you notice nothing's in there because it's empty. And if we go back outside, we can do rmdir, which means remove directory, and remove directory test. And if we do ls, the test directory is gone. So now we're almost done, just a couple more stuff. But also, Daniel sent a pretty important link in chat, linuxjourney.com. It's very good to learn more about Linux, so you guys should check that out later. But now we can take a look at different editing software. So I'm not going to go too in depth. So Nano and Vim are both like editing tools that Linux does use. Vim is very powerful and Nano is more simple. You can ask Zenkai more about Vim because it's pretty complicated. It takes a while to learn, but it's very important to learn. But you should probably always stick with Nano in the very beginning. So I believe we can do Nano really important.txt. And if it loads, basically this is a GNU Nano. This is what it looks like. There are a bunch of commands in the bottom, and we can edit stuff too. So let's say we just edit stuff like test, and then we can do Control X, which is exit, and then save the modified buffer. That basically means, do you want to save? And we say yes, we want to save. So we hit Y. And then file name the right, we want to save it as really important.txt, and we click enter. And then if we do cat really important.txt, which remember, it prints out the directories. We can see, it prints out the contents of the file. It shows that we have tests at the bottom. Vim isn't installed on this little terminal we're using, so we're not even going to worry about it. And then we can work with the data as this says right here. And there's piping and redirection. So there's sed, which is a stream editor, awk or awk, which is like working with tabular data, and tr, which is translate, which is replacing a character with another. Those are a lot more complicated, and we're not going to get into them today. But we will take a quick look at sed because we have to fix some stuff in our file. So as you can see in our file, currently it says Daniel does not like Linux. So that's obviously not true. Everybody likes Linux. So what we can run is a simple sed command. So sed, and then your two apostrophes. And then I'm going to do S, and then backslash, and then does not, and another backslash, and then does. So basically what this part of the command is doing is sed is the actual command function. And then does not is the expression we're searching for, and does is the expression we're going to replace with. So we're going to replace does not with does. Also make sure to add extra backslash here. We're going to replace does not with does. And then the file we want to replace this from is really important. Why is it not working? Okay, shoot. Something went wrong. Oh, it's because it's not backslashes. Oops. Wait. So it's supposed to be a slash, I think. Slash does not and slash does. And then really important.txt. And if we run this now, we should see, look, Daniel does like Linux. So everybody's happy now. And now we're just going to take a look at some miscellaneous commands. I'm not going to run all of them because they're all miscellaneous. So bash is basically a shell program. Right now we're working in bash. Echo, we've already talked about it, is echo, right? You can echo hello world and it prints something out. And man is the man pages or the manuals. So those are very useful. So if you don't know how like a command works, you can just do man and then that command, and I'll show you like pages of how the thing actually works, which is also similar, but instead it prints out the absolute path of where the command is. Alias, or however you want to pronounce it, basically those are pretty useful in CyberPatriot because sometimes like the person making the image might have like changed like CD to something very like very, very bad, as Zenkai sometimes does. And so you have to change it back. And there's also a type command. Less is a pager. Basically, it's similar to cat, except you can scroll down. So it's more useful for longer files. Currently, we were working with shorter files, so cat was pretty much fine. History, we can run history right now. History, it shows you the history of commands that have been used. So as you can see, this is like a really long history of all of our commands. And reboot, it just reboots your system. Power off, it powers off. And exit, exit like you exit your terminal or your shell. I don't think it works here because we're working with an online terminal, so that kind of sucks, but it's okay. And now I'll just quickly talk about some of the package managers. We don't have to actually do these in depth because it would take a bit too long. But basically, as Zenkai already mentioned before, package managers are for installing software. And it's, as you can see, it's no installers, it's only packages.deb. So apt is the most common package manager you're probably going to be using because it's the package manager on Debian. And Ubuntu is also based off Debian, as Zenkai said. So apt works on both Ubuntu and Debian, or apt-get. They're basically the same thing. So you guys can check this out later, but the most common ones you guys are probably gonna use is app install and a package name, app-update, which downloads the package lists, app update and app install, which installs more packages, app remove, which uninstalls packages. So like if there's a malware, you can apt auto remove, or sorry, apt remove and the uninstalled package. And then you can do updates and full upgrades, updates and upgrades. And you can also do apt auto remove, which removes the unneeded dependencies. So it's a bit different from apt remove, but they're pretty similar. dpkg-a-configure, that fixes dependencies when apt fails. So if your app breaks at any time, you should run that command. And there's some more stuff here, but that's basically it. So I think that's all we're going to be talking about today. We're going to stop at the Linux file systems. I believe I was also supposed to tell you guys, if you guys want to learn like a bit more about Linux, to check out like the Linux category on the sign up form or something. And I think someone else is going to take off from here and continue talking.
All right, so that's basically it for today. If you guys have any questions, or we'll continue working on, or we'll continue, if you guys are interested, we'll definitely talk more about it. And if you guys are interested into competing for CyberPatriot, please let us know, and then we'll form the teams and everything. And yeah, so if you guys have any questions, you guys can type them in chat or anything. Sorry for going 5 minutes too fast. Just kidding. But yeah, this is the end at 2. But yeah, I got the intermediate slides, says Patrick. I sadly do not have the advanced slides. I have like 1 slide, and that's for OpenSSH. But that's like, I can share it to you guys later. I'll put it in like I'll put it in the oh yeah, by the way, guys, we'll have a folder for all the like info you guys can look through, and we'll have like images and some prep stuff. Oh yeah, and and the biggest question is, who says no to Linux? All right. Yeah, that's basically it. If you guys have any questions, you can ask. By the way, if you guys do plan on competing, it might be somewhere around $35 to $38, $35 to $40. Just say that. So, yeah. We're still figuring out a payment method, but it probably will be online, so it'll be pretty cool. So you still have to go to Walnuts. But yeah, also, we can definitely discuss the price later. And I don't know what else there is to talk about. Zenkai, do you have anything to add?
Not really.
All right. Yeah, also this meeting's being recorded, so we'll probably upload it and let everyone see it for the dink memes. Like, who says no to Linux? Or, I don't know. Yeah. Or to learn about aliases.
Lamau.
Elias? Elias. Elias.
Alias, Elias, Elias, Elias. I don't know.
Alien?
Yo, what are you doing? Are you done?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
These are pretty
Feel
good.
free to leave.
We'll probably meet again in a week. Keep you guys updated.
Anti-aliasing.
Yeah. Anti-Elijah-ing. Dude, wait, we have 3 Patricks. We got Patrick Wang, Patrick Linsaronra, and we got Clay Patrick.
Yep.
Yo, Clay Patrick, the GOAT.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna end the meeting soon. So if you don't have any questions, you can leave so that we can, stop recording.
So,
Oh yeah, you guys have any checklists I can look at for
Soon.
you want to Google them?
Windows, Linux, all that?
Oh, I can probably send you over one, but it's like really rough. Like it's not like actual checklist. It's just like outline. Are you patriotic if you compete in CyberPatriot? True. Okay, everyone's gone.
Yay. Oh,
Except Patrick.
Yeah, I'm just vibing here, All right. Thanks for the lesson. Although a lot of stuff kind of went over my head. The Linux stuff was a good refresher since it was hands-on, but everything else, I kind of felt like it was just spitting out information about the operating system,
Yeah, kind of true.
But yeah, very, very detailed. All right, goodbye.
See ya.